So, welcome everyone to Safar. Safar. Moving with dreams, wastelands, and our utopian realities. Safar is a series of performances in the public space. Performative talks between activists, thinkers, witchers, and artists about anarchy, strategy, possible utopian realities, and the spaces our bodies inhabit. Dreams practiced in wastelands and gardens of exiles. Outside, or parallel or beyond the patriarchal, capitalist, heterosexist, colonial, hegemonic order, there are realities of sisterhood, love, collaboration, care, hope, and community. Sharing influence and not taking power. In solidarity. In Safar, we, the duo Aghili Karlsson, invites sisters we admire. We ask them to share parts of their lives and their visions in a traveling performative talk, moving from the center of Stockholm to our studio in the rural areas on the edge of the city. A participatory travel where others can join in moving, talking, and sharing a meal. Well, some of us. And we are so happy, honored, and excited to present our guests today. Nyman, actor, director, artist, and researcher, and Kästel, artist and nurse. So happy you're joining us on Safar today on this journey. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much also for the small exclusive group of invited guests, or no, the people who are joining us. We have to keep it very small today because of the pandemic, of course. And I've also told everyone why we are in Rättbuss today and not on public transport that we usually do Safar in. Okay, so I'm gonna put my mask on and take this one. Okay, so let's see how this works. Hello Adam, Ellen.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. Yeah, where should we start? We are on a bus.
Yeah.
On our way to Järna.
In the middle of this pandemic.
In the middle of the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm curious about your research in your PhD about Black studies and adoption. Is it something you could talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, I'm doing a PhD at Uni Arts Stockholm, which is Stockholms konstnärliga högskola.
Yeah.
And the topic is about, or the questions is and themes is. I'm at the Institution of Acting.
Yeah.
So the perspective on these issues is mainly from an acting perspective, and it's about what kind of strategies do we develop to do our praxis or work in institutions or normative spaces, or white spaces,
Yeah.
and what do we develop, and I think I call it strategies because and not methods. It could have been seen as a method, for example, doing these adjustments to fit in.
Yeah.
But I think I call it strategies because I think it's developed as in a way to survive.
Yeah.
The spaces, and not, for me, method is also very something you choose.
Yeah.
And strategies can also be, of course, something you choose, but in this case maybe you don't even notice that you're changing yourself or your body or adapting or adjusting to be in these spaces. And
out of necessity.
Out of necessity, and also that you don't even sometimes notice what you leave behind before you enter a space or room. And what does it? And I think that's interesting because for an actor, it's also kind of double acting.
Yeah.
Because you're acting to be in the space, and then you're also there to act or to practice acting. So it can be, and that can be. Some of these adjustments you do are also in conflict with the actual art form acting, because that could be very much about taking space, being bold, express yourself, and the adjustment you maybe do for being in the room can maybe be more about diminishing yourself, or let other people come before step in to the room before you, or adjust, check out what are they doing, and then I maybe add in afterwards, or there is a kind of politeness to this adjustment. And after a while I figure out also, because I had to figure out what kind of practice do I center this research from, and then I went into to focus on adoption, since I'm adopted from Eritrea, and then I could see that there are lots of similarities in acting and adopting and being adopted in terms of adaptation. And I thought that link is interesting. That's what I'm researching more now. That because that's also an adjustment to a standard or a norm or something you have to adjust to fit in, and I think that's I'm very curious about if you could call that actually acting.
Yeah, sure. So it's not only like one layer of acting or two layers of acting, it's multiple layers of acting, and that for survival more or less.
Yeah, and I think we all do it. I mean, we also put up a character on our social media. It's like that's also like it's still ourselves, but it's something image of ourselves as well. And I think that's but this is very sometimes conscious, but sometimes very unconscious, and it's out of a need. And I think that's forced acting.
Yeah.
So and I think that's interesting to see these small details in how you develop that.
Yeah.
But I think it could be associated to many different. It's not just black actors, or it's all these power. It's connected to the power structure, so it can be associable for many. I think everybody could consider what they do leave behind when they enter a room.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
and these strategies, I understand that they're from like necessity or a forced perspective, but are there also strategies for motstånd, resistance?
Yes, I think so, because I think sometimes with deceit, sometimes you are also what do they want from you? And sometimes you have to figure out that the demand of resistance maybe is not really why you were in the first place wanted to be in that space or work with this art form, but you end up being the angry woman, angry black woman, or whatever, because that's what's actually selling or what is interesting for the art world. And I think that's so I think there's both like I think it's interesting to look also on internalization, but also on all these different strategies, so if it's separatism or resistance, or that it's from where it's connected within you and also within your community, so not to be, so it doesn't get corrupted or it doesn't get used.
Yeah.
So I've done some resistant work, and then I've been asked to do it on openings, for example, or something, because it's good. It's entertaining.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's interesting to figure out who's asking for your resistance, and when, and do they really want the resistance, or do they just want the entertainment or the image of it?
Yeah.
So I think
everybody loves institutional critique.
Yeah. But how do you work? You're an artist yourself.
Yeah.
And do you? How do you work with your art? Do you?
I'm a visual artist, and I work mainly with performance or performance and video.
Sorry, Adam.
Yeah.
Could we ask you to keep? Should we do the microphone a bit closer?
I think it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay.
Okay, great.
So I've been working quite much with. I started off working quite much with themes around anarchism, and tried to match up anarchism with other things like what would an anarchist cafe be if it was anarchistic for real, or something like that. And I had to make a cafe. And then I was thinking of like, but what would anarchist healthcare look like if it was just not anarchists doing the healthcare, but if the healthcare was really anarchistic? And I couldn't really answer that, so I had to then I jumped off art academy and started to become a nurse and so on.
And how would anarchistic art healthcare? What would that look?
Yeah, that's I haven't really, because it's some things you can see what the institutions do to the to this meeting between like caregivers and patients, and because it's a really big power gap in that relation, so someone has the knowledge and competence about health and caregiving, and the other person is in need and often in pain, often scared. So how does one do that relation mutual? And I guess it's been quite much of a intuitive work, and also because I started off with some even there institutional critique of the working place at the ER I was working in, akutmottagning, emergency room, and on how the structure of this planning of the work there was built up, and I understood it was working according to lean production. It's the same working method as or it's a version of the working method that they have in the Toyota car factories. So it's like deliver on demand, and it's like this post-Fordistic industry. So I was, because I thought it was really interesting how we were working. It was like small groups work in team together with doctor and nurse, and it's quite good, and so on. But there was something icky about it, and I couldn't really put my finger on it until I understood the whole control society aspect of it. Oh yeah, well this isn't. It's a way for the people in this industry or emergency room to adopt to yourself the strategies of how to gain some kind of profit for the producer and the buyer. And this is not, it's not the patient that is the custom. It's the landstinget, the region, who's paying for the service.
Could that be concrete?
Yeah, the concrete forms are like having a morning meeting, deciding what our different roles are, and trying to form the caregiving so it should be so förutsägbart, predictable as possible, and so one can fit some kind of scheme, and this is of course like totally impossible in many senses when you're working with people and people in crisis. So in every meeting with the patient there's this, of course, this feeling of stress because it's many patients, but that's not new for the system. But anyway, it becomes a very forced format of the meeting, and since nurse is a power job, you have this uniform and you have this great deal of power against the patient. It's really easy for that to inflict on this meeting and the relationship between patient and nurse. So that was like some kind of research I did, and I made an art piece about it that puts nursing in this history of industrialization and post-Fordism and control society. And of course that's not anarchist nursing, so what would that be? And I tried to make up some examples for what would a direct democratic how would a direct democratic trauma team work, like taking a patient with severe damages. And so I made up this like working solution where you talk in a circle and end with the patient, and then you do next move and you like stop and discuss and continue with the idea that this would not be like slower or less efficient than the idea of a hierarchical structure in this emergency situation. And that also depended on some observations I had done in the emergency room where the like head surgeon or doctor didn't have this approach, but was really calm and listening to the whole team and so on, and like, yeah, well, this works even better than when the doctor is trying to be some kind of captain of the situation. But of course the hierarchical dynamics are still there, but with this calm doctor, it works even better, I thought. So I tried to explore this like direct democratic work, and I made some film about it, but it was not really clear. So I tried to have a workshop with nurses from the ER, and I had a couple of stand-in patients that were painted by a masker, yeah, and so they looked really damaged and so on. Yeah, it was really good, and I had really explained this system to work, and in came the patients, and they just didn't follow the system. They just worked like really intuitively with each other, and did a great job actually. Not hierarchical and with no structure. So, and I tried it again with the next patient, and it was like I talked about, but we're like trying to follow. I have made up this scheme, it's gonna be like a direct democratic caregiving, and of course, yes, and it just followed the same pattern again, like really intuitively and good work, but not according to my instructions, and not either hierarchical at all.
How come?
They were, I guess they were quite used to working with each other, and I guess also they were filmed as we are now, and that's puts a stress on the situation, and so, but so I had all this material then, and like, how am I going to use this, because they actually did better off than I expected, but not like I wanted them to. So it's congenial to my idea, and so so I guess I guess the closest I come to like finding bits and glimpses of this anarchist healthcare is when I feel that I have a contact with the patient that feels genuine.
Can you do when you practice that at work?
Yeah.
How does your colleagues, how do they react to that? Can they see the difference, or can you demand a different approach, or different order of from how things should be done?
I don't really have the mandate, I guess, to demand it, but I am lucky in that sense that I'm working in the ambulance now. So then you're a smaller team of only 2, and you're not in this institution, or not as much in an institution. You're at home or outside or somewhere meeting patients in somewhat way their environment. And it's also, you have more time with the patient, so it's in that sense easier to build up a mutual relation, but that depends on the colleague as well, and so some people really kind of enjoy working with me in that sense, because I take it quite easy and at first with the patient, and other can be a little bit stressed about it and want to take the man in control directly, because it's not how they're used to it being done.
I don't know, but my first thought is that do you feel that you would be able to detect the reason for the disease, or the reason, some answers through this method as well?
The one that I was trying at the workshop and so on. Yeah, sure. It would work quite fine, I think. Yeah, and it was methodical as well, and also, of course, when I'm working more like intuitively now in the ambulance, I'm also methodical and like range out dangers for the patient and so on, and take it fast if I have to for the patient's sake or so it's not like I'm always slow or something like that, but yeah.
Because I thought that this anti-authoritarian system maybe should be easier to find out some diseases or that's just an
Yeah, well,
imagination.
yeah, because if the less one goes into a situation with a preconception of it, it's of course easier to find unspoken reasons for the situation. So it can absolutely be a benefit, but it does take longer time and it does take some patience. But of course that can be rewarding in the long run. Yeah.
And from a patient's point of view,
Yeah.
Being a patient with a chronic disease, and actually meeting you once in the ER, I had the privilege to. I mean, just the strategy you're explaining, Ada, with also including the patients in the rounds or in
Yeah.
the circles. I mean, that is, I think that is connected to what you were saying, Ellen. That could also make it easier to sort of define what the problem is, since patients are seldom included in the.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is not like unheard of in nursing research or so. I mean, it's much talk about autonomy of the patient and including the patient and asking open questions and so on. But I guess being what kind of understanding you have of how a organization works or should work have implementations on how you deal with that. So if your main idea is that a hierarchical structure is the fastest and most efficient, but like not as nice or something, then of course it will be harder to adapt to a sense of trying to have a mutual relationship with patients. So I guess that's a makes it easier for me as an anarchist to try to adapt to these situations and be including, or yeah, I mean, but I like when it's chaotic and I like when it's odd and so on as well. So
How do they relate to the word anarchy when you worked in the workshops?
oh well, maybe I just didn't really use the word anarchy. No, I was more like direct democratic and
That's a strategy
mutual
none of us
as well.
have.
Yeah, so yeah, but also because I didn't feel that it had to be that like politicized as well. It was the function I was looking for, not the ideals or the pamphlets of it all.
We just discovered that we are in Kyrkskola already.
Ah,
So we're more than, or maybe halfway. And we brought. Do you want some tea?
I want some tea. It's quite cold in this
So
place.
It's sage. One of them is with honey. So if anyone, I think this one, right?
This one is honey.
So it's sage from our garden since. Oh my God! No. Okay. Oh, I wasn't supposed to take that one before you give it to someone else, of course. Okay.
I think that's really interesting. Also, I mean, would be also relatable to, I mean, psychological healthcare or in psychiatry and
Yeah. Do you want tea as well?
You.
But also from, I was also curious about this relation to animism you were talking about,
Yeah.
and can you
Yeah,
talk a
because-
bit about how that could work in?
Yeah, because later works, since I have gone through a transition as a trans woman, I had this revelation when I started my HRT, the hormone therapy, hormone replacement therapy. And I was quite curious about because I had read a lot of positive things about it beforehand. This is great to start with the hormones. You really feel better. And I was like, yeah, this is interesting. And I was like, what's going to happen? You know, I knew what would happen to my body and so on, but like psychologically, what does female hormones do to you? You know, and I had like these strange ideas that, like, will I feel softer now? You know, will I feel more feminine or something like that? And I didn't. But what happened was, like, I really discovered that I had a body. Like, the signals from the body went through. So I started to be hungry when I didn't eat. Hadn't happened to me before. And all these different, like, I really felt so physical. Like, whoa, I'm in this meat mountain. Like, I'm an animal. Like, wow. And it was really, I felt like a animal monster or something like that, but in a good way. And I'm really not now saying something about women and animals. Just to be clear, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that women are closer to animals. No, but I am saying that I got access to my body in a way that I never had before, and it was beautiful, and it was I cried a lot, and that of course is something that hormones also do with you, but yeah, I think for me it was a really revelation of understanding that I was a physical being, and I was a physical being among other physical beings, in that sense that, like, I have a body, I am on a body, I have bodies inside of me. It became, for me, it was like easier to understand myself in the world, not as a observer of my surroundings, but as a part of my surroundings. That it's intermeshed, me and everything else. That it was easier to see myself in a whole, helhet, as wholesome, not in a ditch, so that started making me work with ideas of materialistic animism, like the idea of everything having a soul around us, the trees and animals and creeks and teacups and the trash, and also like flipping points of understanding, however, is dead materia actually alive, and is alive materia actually dead? You know, what am I in this? It's DNA copying DNA. It's nothing, you know. It's just machinery, and it felt liberating in many senses. So since that, I've been working more around the ideas of bodies intermeshed with other bodies. Been working with bacteria like kimchi. Kimchi rimming is my latest project. idea of exchanging bacteria with each other and eating bacteria and so forth.
Well, that's interesting how that changed the whole perception on the body in terms of being part of the universe or the part of the whole. I think it's really interesting. I think for me, I think with the universe, I think it's also, I don't know if I pick all material as having a soul, but I think in timelines and in terms of humbleness, and also the consciousness of leave traces to define or to mark out a place or remembered obituaries, and I have a lot. I'm very ambivalent towards, because I really think it should be healthy if you could be able to be forgotten, and to just
to be forgotten.
So you just be like the wind or something, and in the summer that's Earth, and then it's the next. So you leave space for the next generation instead of. I think there's something in our way of taking control of our time on Earth, and what that do to the planet, and also all our behavior, the need of finding ourselves or in our space here. And I think that we should be. I don't think that we should, but I think that it could be healthy to not be so conscious or not to be so afraid to be forgotten.
No?
I think that I'm trying to work with that. Not always mark out, not always be seen or make mark, but it doesn't work so good when in the art field, I think.
Yeah, because my question was, can I ask you something that in that case? It was like, is it okay to be forgotten when you're no longer here? Or, I mean, should you be acknowledged as when you are here, actually? And then, in that case, you could be forgotten. I'm thinking about grievability, that me and Björn, we work around that a lot, of how when you are not acknowledged to have like a worth, or actually your existence is not as important, like people of color, for example. Yeah. So then when you are no longer here, you also lose your grievability, so to say. But so I was super curious about how, if you are forgotten, if that's a good thing. But is it also okay if you haven't been acknowledged while you were here? Or is that a premise of...
Yeah, I think that
was not a question. It was
of course, because of the power structures of who is to be seen when you live in your lifetime, but also and who is to be remembered afterwards, and who is to be remembered in the history. But I think if you just leave the human being, the Homo sapiens, for a while, just look at the planet, it could be really good if we just could be. And also to be, I think also we would be maybe more satisfied if we didn't have to achieve so many things in life, and to collect our idea of achievement based on actions, but of course, grievability is part of being seen and part of being seen in a just way.
Yes.
And I think that is of course an important thing. But in general, I think it would be better if it didn't, because I think the whole system is based on to be remembered and to be talked about, and to when we and I think of course the thing of remembering someone who has passed away is a very lovely thing. So it's not that, but I think it's what we all more or less achieve to be remembered or to be important. I think it's really not very good for the planet.
I really agree.
Yeah. So I think
I didn't understand you as talking about it as on a personal level, but as a structural, societal level. Yeah.
But in a personal level, I also sometimes think sometimes I think, should I have a home page? Should it be registered? Should I be? What does it? Is it important that people know what I'm doing? Is it important that I'm dealing with this invincibility or visibility, and but I don't have any good answers to it. But I think sometimes, also especially now when we have so much visibility and also image making, I think it's also interesting to see if we could just not, in a way disappear.
But that's also, in a sense, working against the power structure, I guess.
Yeah.
Leaving space.
But it's also been to some funerals now, and I think sometimes on this idea of how you measure a good life.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people should attend. There should be written something, and this what is a successful life. And I think that's really in the art world also a serious problem. So I think it's interesting to look on how you measure a life in that sense. Because when you write, you don't measure that kind of life, but I think I think it's also blurring what is the interesting part in the arts field. Because I haven't thought so much about it, but or I have, but not really. I haven't come up with any good statements. But you were also talking about the dark ecology. This is great. Sorry,
Yeah.
this is really great. Amazing.
Thomas Morton wrote Dark Ecology. Yeah, well, I guess it's this. Now it was time ago I read it, but I guess it's in the same field of understanding our surrounding world as both dead and alive, and that this distinction between them are not that easily made, especially when you try to go away from an anthropocentric way of viewing life or the universe or something like that. That the ecology is it's happening all the time. Either species or planets die out or not. So it's not ending in that way.
We just left the highway.
We left the highway.
Yeah, turned into Järna. Of course, I think we can see Salto in the background.
Yes.
So Järna is an area with a lot of organic farming and gardens, and also other, a lot of anthroposophic activities. The movement is present here in different ways, but also other like more independent initiatives talking about ecology and and we are now heading to Hölö, where we will get the food that we will eat later in the studio. Time goes fast when you're having a party. Sorry, Ellen, you were saying.
No, it's about Jana. I think it's very difficult to organize. Not difficult, but difficult. But it's to organize a self-organized community, like not just in Facebook groups or meeting groups, but also actually physical, and what the physical, how important that also is to the content that you make these formations, and because it also changes your way of thinking and your way of understanding. But I think we are also in a very functionalistic country where this has always been seen as a very, very destructive thing, because it's blocking the flow or the system. And I think that's it could be really interesting for the country if there were so many more self-organized formations, because that would change our minds also, our mind system of thinking.
Can I just add something here? Because I've also heard you talk about, Ellen, that it's also important to be in the institutions or in the mainstream as well. And I was thinking, I was almost to say, we should have an anarchist health center or a hospital, but then I was thinking, is that the best way to do it, or should we just also be in the existing hospitals and doing the anarchist work? So
for me, I think I'm very much in the institutions now. Of course, I'm in this art school, and I'm also been in institutional theaters or theater houses, and also in boards, but I think we have to beware of that because when you are you're in the alternative spaces, so if you could call it that, I think that's great, because it's also building up who you are, or who you give yourself time to think, and not being in a reaction thinking, but developing your own thinking. And
I'm just gonna let Björn pass here. Yeah, you go.
And that is really important, because sometimes you don't even know, is this reaction demanded from the structure, or is it my reaction? So therefore this the separatism or the self-organized communities is really important for your mind system. But on the other hand, these cannot exist if you, of course they can exist, but these cannot gain any kind of funding depending on the money issue. We need to be in the public sphere, in the public, and to defend the public space, and also the public talk. det offentliga samtalet.
Yeah, public debate. Or what
Public
you can
debate,
say in
yeah.
English,
So
maybe,
we
yeah.
don't, because when there are some förskjutningar, what's that in English?
Oh, I've been looking for the English translation.
Yeah,
of the
but
word
when-
a lot.
when
Even though let's call that shifts or movements.
Shifts, yeah,
or,
when things are heading in a direction, if we don't, if we are not in the public space of the debate, we don't exist, and then we are not. And we have to be to remind about our presence and our opinions and do the real resistance, because there is so much other political things going on right now. So I think I think I have to stop doing this and start turn on the telly and figure out what to do, because things is happening extremely fast right now. And
You're getting likes on the live stream.
so okay, good, because it's like a wake-up call. It's now.
Yeah.
It's really now. You feel, and it's I think it's really urgent, because I can see that things are changing, and that the reaction are less, because we are working with ourselves, and I think we have to just put that aside for a while and figure out what happened now, and to resist or to fight against the changes that are made right now.
Yeah. Are we stopping here?
Yeah, for the moment, but so we stay here.
So we can just go out and take
Yeah.
some fresh air.
Yes.
Sure.
I don't know where my jacket is, but I will go. So, sorry. So part of this this Safar project is that we end our journey in our studio and share a meal together, and today we're getting food at the restaurant over there, Varma Kök, who works locally and with organic produce only. And so we're gonna have their famous pizza.
I had a question about how, at the beginning of your talk, you kind of spoke about us navigating the institution, like wanting to do resistance work as opposed to maybe the facade of it. And I'm wondering, like, how anyone tells the difference, and how how to navigate that when you kind of do, you can tell it's a facade thing. Like where do you see your important, like how do you then navigate, okay, this is the work I will do for them, or within, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really difficult to figure out, but I think it's something you figure out afterwards sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when you have done several, you can maybe see okay, this was. I think for me it's more like who's initiating this. Is it me, or am I asked to do it, and who's then asking, and also sometimes I think with conflicts also on the political debate we have right now, there is also the sometimes I felt afterwards being in a resistance towards a political situation, I felt also that I didn't know if I was feeding the situation as well, because being resistant, but nevertheless I don't regret it, because I think it's important to do the resistance. But when it then commercializes into to be in different spaces and come and show this or do this, and then of course that I never did, because or I did sometimes, but I tried not to do, because then I really felt that was the commercial part of it, or that was not it's not organic.
Yeah, I think
Initiated in me, but I think it's so complex because you don't want to be in this reaction position, but if you don't react, you're just disappearing from the conversation, and that's really, and then you're going to be even more into the situation where you will be needed to react a lot more, and I think that's also the importance of this. But it's a dilemma, and it's also double work, that you have to do your own things and to develop that and be here. But on the other hand, you also have to remember the society that all these people exist, and don't forget them, and they don't have the same opinion as you. So it's,
It's really hard to figure that out, right? I mean,
it's also about integrity, I think, is one thing. It's like actually feeling that, okay, it's an important conversation to have, but like, how does it feel in me, right? And I think that's always so hard to navigate because it's intuitive. I don't know. Which is always.
and also with the case that institutions sometimes get a lot of feelings.
They get a lot of feelings, but they also can be interested in your topics, or so it's like, we want to decolonize here, or we want to be anti-racist here, but then we don't include any people of color, so we just do it ourselves and think that's enough, and it's very often not. And I think that's also and what happens when someone else are taking your discussions. I think it's good to be allies and great, but it's also, there is a limit for how far or how precise this discussion can be. And of course, I think it's great if everybody could be interested in everything, but I think also there is a combination of knowledge and experience that also need to be within these institutions.
Yes.
Wow.
Sorry, but we have the food.
So we have the food.
So should we go?
Yeah, we
Are
should
they
go
waiting
back
for
here.
us over there?
Yeah, I think so.
But is it also connected to your research, Ellen, with like how you also adapt to the
resistance?
No, I mean how you and how you adapt, and sometimes maybe you don't even know that you're adapting in coming into like white or normative or cis rooms or like.
I think so. I think it's interesting in terms of adoption, but also in terms of just in terms of time also, that you've been so satisfied with very little 20 years ago. That was not, I mean, now you can maybe talk about not being the only one in the room, but at that time was maybe talk about being in the room.
Yeah.
Or so there is a time, and I think, but it's also interesting to see that how this time is changing, and that you actually, there is not a straight timeline. Things can go all directions. Doesn't matter how much you know, you can go backwards again. Within 2 seconds.
And we see that in the politics right
Yeah.
now. Går det att öppna bak? Tack. Tack så mycket.
Yeah, and I guess one problem of having allies is like being oppressed by your friends as well.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
when
Just
yeah.
tell me more.
yeah, but I mean, like, it's it's one thing to when you're not the driving force in the resistance, but your allies are. It's very easy to only become this agent of giving. Yeah, I thought I would find it in Swedish.
Yeah, say it in Swedish.
Yeah, but I don't. I've lost all language. Bekräftelse, to
Confirmation.
yeah, confirmation. So, in that sense, it's a slip, like it's a difficult situation where it easily happens that you give confirmation to your allies rather than being helped in a struggle.
Like kind of managing, I guess, other people's comfort and egos in a sense, or
Yeah.
and as opposed to doing the work of like organizing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
In
really
it's good that institutions are allies, and of course, in one sense, yes, but in another sense, it's also much easier to have enemies because them are oppressing you.
Yeah.
But when your friends are,
Yeah.
it's quite it's difficult to navigate.
But it's also when there is this kind of the system and the institutions are including everything. It's like IKEA or
Yeah.
it's like big houses. There's like, we're gonna have a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, but then we want the idea of it, but we don't really want it.
No.
Not in the whole with all things that comes with that. No, but the idea of it, and then so therefore you can have the idea of that to be included, but then in the end you're just supporting that they are having this image that they are inclusive. I fully understand that. Yeah. And then it's almost easier to know when you have the possibility to really be in the opposition. That's.
And it could be the other way around as well, right? Maybe you mentioned it. Sorry, I was a bit confused walking in a live stream. But no, I mean sometimes you also are amongst friends, but you can not realize that as well. Like sometimes you're among not friends, but you can feel too comfortable, and then afterwards you're just, oh my God, what happened? And you feel like a bit dirty in a way. But sometimes it can also be. I mean, it goes the other way around as well. I think it's very complex, this thing of being in opposition or. Like being also representative for resistance or the other stuff. The other we are representatives of anyway. But like the other thing, the future, the sort of
the check.
Yeah, the check. Yes.
Yeah. It's very complex.
I mean, I also think, especially after Bell Hooks is passing, I've been thinking a lot about the lack of like a structural analysis, I guess. And that's the thing with like allies and like institutions and all of that. It's like, okay, there's a too like personal interaction with like very structural issues, right? It's like, so it becomes really hard to actually tell who your friends are because you're thinking about resistance only personally. I don't know, I found that for me anyways, that there's this like oversaturation of that, of like thinking about resistance in a personal sense, as opposed to thinking about it like structurally, and then having some sort of framework for then thinking about relationships, how they're playing out structurally as well. I don't know how to, yeah.
Yeah. That is silences of reflection.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments in Safar, actually. Taking the time of thinking, taking in what other people are saying.
But sometimes also this the notion of that all the experiences when you have someone who says I maybe don't agree fully, but I can support it. That's sometimes more easy because it's there is very clear ideas of who you are and who I am and why we're doing this, or where we can work together and where not. That can sometimes be more easy than to be trying to make an inclusion which is not really an inclusion. But now also I think, as I said before, these are also details because there is another train behind us, and then or not behind us, ahead of us. I don't know, but there is something else going on, and I think also we should also just try to advocate for a more larger idea of change or resistance for what is coming.
Yes. And need to articulate what that resistance might be in this specific moment.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wonder why it's. I'm thinking around the silence. I feel there is a silence. Not there is a silence, or I don't know what that is. But I'm a bit scared of this silence. I don't know if that is because people are working, or if it's people think someone else is going to do it, or.
Do you mean the silence around the like the fascist eventual future that we are facing?
And like an active silence.
And I think also it's connected maybe also to what it means to be talking about it in public. The consequences for that.
Oh, you just started a really interesting conversation there, where we, when we reached our final destination, did one of you or both of you bring a text, a poem, or a song, or something you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I have brought.
Do you think it's a good time now before we leave the bus?
Good time now, yeah, sure. But it's fun because I was thinking quite much about Simone Weil when you were talking, and different quotes I just like read, but that's not what I was attempting to read.
I'm very curious about those quotes now.
Yeah, so I'll just
Yeah.
I guess I'll take them.
Always relevant.
Yeah, always Simone Weil.
Vi stannar här en liten stund. Det går bra. Kan vi stannar på bussen en liten stund bara innan vi går av? Ja, tack.
Yeah, because you were talking about giving space and letting oneself be forgotten, or that's not exactly what you said, but like not actively taking up all the space that you can, the importance of giving space. And now this is in Swedish, I don't have it in English. So Simone Weil. So just a short. Att ta tillgodo tomheten. I fråga om gudarna tror vi traditionsmässigt, och när det gäller människorna vet vi av erfarenhet att varje väsen alltid, på grund av naturens lag, utövar hela den makt som står till buds. Citat. Grekiskt namn. Thukydides. Jag vet inte hur man uttalar. Likt en gas strävar själen att utfylla hela det rum som upplåtes för den. En gas som drog ihop sig och lämnade ett tomrum kvar. Det skulle strida mot entropilagen. Så är det inte med de kristnas Gud. Han är en övernaturlig Gud. Jehova däremot, en naturlig Gud. Att inte utöva hela den makt som står till buds, det är att uthärda tomheten. Det strider mot alla naturens lagar. Nåden ensam kan det. Nåden fyller ut, men den tar inte sig in bara där det finns. Men den tar sig bara in där det finns tomrum som kan ta emot den. Och det är nåden som skapar tomheten. Yeah.
Thank you. So many questions about that. I'm going to take them when we eat some.
Yeah, and I guess the other one was... Yeah, I don't know. This is.
But you had another one as well, no?
Yeah, I'll take the one that I was.
I feel guilty of like pushing you in the direction of.
Yeah, you can always read Simone Weil.
Yeah.
But this I can take in English because I found it on the phone. And it's Ursula K. Le Guin, The Dispossessed. And it's this sci-fi book about two planets or a moon colony, an anarcho-communist moon separated from the regular, like, capitalist Earth beneath it. So, and it's when the main character is a child and they're learning history. They had picked up the idea of prisons from the episode in the life of Udo, which all of them who had elected to work on history were reading. There were many obscurities in the book, and Wide Plains had nobody who knew enough history to explain them. But by the time they got to Udo's ear in the fort of Drio, and the concept prison had become self-explanatory. And when a circuit history teacher came through the town, he expounded the subject with the reluctance of a decent adult forced to explain an obscenity to children. Yes, he said. A prison was a place where the state put people who disobeyed its laws. But why didn't they just leave the place? Well, they couldn't leave. The doors were locked. Locked? Yeah, like the doors on a moving truck so you don't fall out. Stupid. But what did they do inside the room all the time? Nothing. There was nothing to do. You've seen pictures of Udo in the prison cell in Drio, haven't you? Imagine the defiant patience, bowed grey head, clenched hands, motionless in encroaching shadows. Sometimes prisoners were sentenced to work. Sentenced? Well, that means a judge, a person given power by the law, ordered them to do some kind of physical labor. Ordered them? What if they didn't do it? Well, they were forced to do it. If they didn't work, they were beaten. A thrill of tension went through the children listening. 11 and 12-year-olds, none of whom had ever been struck or seen any person struck, except in immediate personal anger. Tula asked the question that was in all their minds. You mean a lot of people would beat up one person? Yes. Why didn't the others stop them? Well, the guards had weapons. The prisoners did not, the teacher said. He spoke with the violence of one forced to say the detestable and embarrassed by it. So it's just this short piece of the book where I felt when I read the book the first time that I was so relieved to have these short passages in a depiction of a anarcho-communist society where that was the main moral and that was the main way of thinking. So this is just like this depiction of not understanding how a prison works or what that is or why one would have it. But it was like being an anarchist in this society, it's always like having double standards of what my moral would be according to what's surrounding me, and here it wasn't. So it was like a free space to breathe in. And the society she's describing is by no means an ideal utopian society. It's like a corrupt and poor anarcho-communist society, but still it's like, whoa, how that would be like such a relief to be able to breathe in this environment. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Björn, do we have time for, because we're standing on a, Ellen, do you have anything you would like to share?
Yeah. I don't have my glasses, so maybe someone else will need to read. Or
Is it English?
Yes.
What?
Do you want to come and sit? This is I've been reading. I don't know if this is relevant at all, but I just took. But I've been reading a lot of Ethiopian and Eritrean artists. And Miherad is a poet doing a PhD in Austria, and she was part of the course Wax and Gold Lulu Sharonet was having at Konstfack. And this is a book which was made it's an art book about wax and gold, and she was initiator or strong impact on this book. It's a lot of other artists as well, but I think it's the whole idea of wax and gold is very interesting, but don't have time to talk about that now. But this is in Amharic, but this is in English, so maybe you would like to read.
Sure. The poem is called The Planner. Why do we even make plans? Being human is like being the plan of another planner/planet, so that in some ways you are always a plant in someone else's plan. And so until the planner decides to change the plan, or unless the planner decides to dismiss the plan, you are beautifully sitting there, plain plan man. Like the flow of the river, determined by the shape of the land in any situation. But how to flow is a very different question. You can either carefully step on the rocks, or you can simply decide to flow under the rocks or be forgotten forever. 2 rocks still out there to shape your flow and course.
Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you all as well.
And take a, so should I say an hour from now?
Let's think of that one big about.
Yeah. That I need to get things.
Yeah.
The bus is leaving. So.
The bus is leaving, and so if you have anything like you want to add this last minute of Safar, it's now.
I'm just very thankful for listening to you, and I will always think about anarchy every time I go to hospital situation. I think that's really an interesting place to do that.
It's been an honor listening to
Yeah.
you. It feels like we have much more to talk about that's not going to be said in a few minutes now. No.
A lot of talks also initiated here
Yeah,
today, but important issues that we're also facing right
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And of course, thank you so much from us. And thank you for people watching the live stream.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Do you want
joining
to-
us.
And so we have moved from the city center to the really like on the borders. So the Stockholm region ends here.